Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and wherever you're watching in the world, welcome along to the One Hub Racing Precision Tier, season number 15 and round number 10, the finale, which takes us to the Brazilian Grand Prix in Sao Paulo. Great to have you joining us here. My name is Kieran McGidley, and joining me in the commentary box, or rather I'm joining him, is the lovely Mr. Austin Smith. Austin, how are you tonight?
I'm doing fantastically, Kieran. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. Do you know what? My second commentary position here in One Hub of the season, of course, as a reserve. And, I'm sat next to the expert right here. But what I can tell you is that Dane Star, if you missed it last time out, did seal the Drivers' Championship. So a big congratulations to him. Second and third place, though, still yet to be decided. In fact, I got that straight away wrong because Austin's absolutely going to correct me there.
It wasn't Dane, it was Januel who sealed it with an 8th place. Remember, he did finish in 2nd place, if you've watched last week, but a post-race penalty, which we have speculated about at the time, obviously myself and Owen, did actually come to fruition. It was a 20-second time penalty for the incident you saw last week, ultimately pushing him down from 2nd place down to P8. However, because the only rival he had at the time in the championship, Cosberry, did not make it across the line and retired. He did make it to 90%, that's why he's still listed as 15th, but obviously did not get any points, did not get fastest lap or anything like that. That sealed the victory for Janel because Cosberry was so far behind that he had to gain points on Janel and he was unable to do so. So that sealed the Drivers' Championship. However, the Constructors' Championship is still open. It's still up for grabs. When I say open and up for grabs, I mean the difference is 40 points, so it's not easy for Red Bull Racing to take it from the sister team, Toro Rosso, but a chance is there, let's just say that.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, here's the thing. Red Bull have a great chance, or a slim chance, I should say, of taking this Constructors' title. Obviously, there's 44 points, theoretically, up for grabs for Red Bull if both cars finish 1 and 2 and one of them gets the fastest lap. But saying that, if they don't have a great day, then they're under threat from Renault, they're under threat from Williams, they're even under threat from Ferrari and McLaren, by the looks of it, just on the cusp of being on the risk there, of dropping down from 2nd all the way down to possibly 4th and 5th. So they've really got to keep their wits about them if they want to keep on this charge, which is going to be a huge challenge here. But Racing Point, 11 points this season, 31 points behind the next cars are Mercedes, and they're 166 points off of the top dogs. I mean, what's gone wrong for them this season, Austin?
That's a good question. I mean, one thing that certainly played into it was Cloudy midway through the season deciding to just drop assists completely, and ever since he's had 5 retirements in a row, wasn't there for the race in Belgium. And effectively, he hasn't seen the checkered flag since China, which was round 3. So that definitely played a huge role. Combine that with Jorit missing 3 races in a row from Canada over to Germany and then Belgium as well, and also retiring the other 3 races that he has participated in. No Racing Point, in fact, has seen the checkered flag since China. That was the high point of the season, a P5 for Cloudy and a P10 for Jorit. Since then, retirements and non-entries.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we head tonight to the Brazilian Grand Prix here at the Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache. 4.309 kilometres, 36 laps await us here in the season finale. 15 corners, 10 to the left and 5 to the right, and we go in an anti-clockwise direction. One of the only tracks on the calendar that actually is anti-clockwise, and when these drivers turn up in real life to the track, they can find that it is a little bit demanding on the neck. They're so used to going, well, the right way around the clock, if you like, around these tracks. Here, when they come to Brazil, it's completely flipped on its head. It's an entirely new challenge on the neck. Sure, it's not going to be a huge issue for these drivers, but they're going to have to go the other way around the clock here tonight. Fastest lap of the race in the entire record of the track, 1:10.5, set by Valtteri Bottas back in 2018. First came here in 1973, which was won on his home ground by Emerson Fittipaldi. Last race winner, of course, was Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. And Brazil, in its entire history here in Formula 1, has hosted 47 Grand Prix. 37 of them have been here at Interlagos. And I do love a stream with Austin, because all that information I've just given you, he's worked hard for that one. I knew I was going to be in the box about 3 o'clock this afternoon, so I have had a limited time to prepare, but I know it's going to be a great stream wherever I am, whatever I'm doing with the lovely Mr. Smith there, and I hope it's going to be a fantastic stream once again.
Yeah, the drivers start to get ready now. We are 30 seconds away from starting the lobby. The format, as always, 18 minutes of qualifying, followed by those 36 laps you already mentioned. And one thing that is very peculiar about Interlagos is it very much feels like an oval with an infield. If you look at going out of Jungsao, out of turn 12, then let's disregard the center S, and then all the way to turn 4. It really feels like just high speed, and then you go through turns 4 and 5, and all of a sudden you have this twisty, tight little section where it's effectively impossible to overtake almost. I mean, maybe you can try and send one up the inside of turn 10 or turn 8, but it's really tricky. And it certainly is a distinctive feel, apart from the anti-clockwise track, which I feel like that was a nice little intricacy of the calendar. When I looked at the calendar at first and saw when the races were happening, and the first thing I saw was that we had 2 anti-clockwise tracks, and they were Singapore and Brazil. Round 5 before the halfway break, and round 10 the season finale. So I don't know if that was intentional. I'm pretty sure it wasn't, but it makes it interesting because you have 4 races in a row where, you know, it's the same old, same old. You always go clockwise, always right way around, and then all of a sudden for the last race you have to completely switch your mind. And yeah, obviously the neck pressure isn't there for sim racing, but it's still different driving around a clockwise track or a counterclockwise track.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a whole different challenge. I just saw in the chat there that Jarnall, understandably so, is sad that I didn't announce him as champion at the start of this stream. I do apologise, Jarnall. You see, I see Jan as Dan for some reason. It's just how my brain works. But speaking of Jarnall, one of the press conference questions to all drivers here this lovely Friday evening was, how would you rate your teammate? That was it in paraphrase this season. Jarnall said, well, my first one was Crimson, but he left, so he'd say 8 out of 10. The second and current one with Kelvin, I hate to say it, but 3 out of 10. He hasn't got many points in races, but thankfully I got enough to carry the team to the Constructors' Championship, and he leaves it by saying, I'd better get a new teammate next season.
Yeah, very, very harsh there, but I mean, I can't really blame him. I mean, the fact that Janel has been so dominant and the Constructors' Championship is still open kind of speaks to that fact. You had Red Bull also switching drivers twice, which is something Dainstar mentioned. He gave his teammates an unreliable out of 10 rating because they both left, and now he's got Vitinho again for the last one. When I say again, Vitinho is back, but he wasn't in the Red Bull the first time. So he's back here with the Precision tier for the final race, at his home race, by the way. But he's Dainstar's 3rd teammate now on a 10-race season, which I really understand that unreliable rating, but Dainstar has had, you know, struggles with his teammate as well, and that's it was just slightly less, which is why the Constructors' Championship is still open. Otherwise, I think that would have been seen if Kelvin would have scored better, or if Crimson had not left, because Crimson did a decent job while he was here for Toro Rosso. If that hadn't happened, then I think we wouldn't talk about any of the championships in One Hub at all being open. on the final race.
Yeah, a little bit of a hot lap guide as we head to the Brazilian track here. The drivers need to make every corner count around Interlagos. This is just one of the shortest time tracks on the calendar. Very heavy gradient changes around the circuit. It means that drivers will need to be careful when applying that throttle, otherwise the back end is just going to go all wild on them and they'll have a hard time of keeping that car under control. Hooking up Sector 2 will be the most important thing in order to set a good lap time. Through these turns, the car likes to understeer, so braking early and staying tight to the apex is the best way to navigate through them. As Scorpion there just beating Cloudy Balloons, then Cam beats him to that one, a 108.3 there on a set of these soft tyres from Cam there in the Haas. As you can see now, lots of drivers heading over the line to set their first lap times of the session here. We've got a Renault coming across the line. That was Maurice there, 108.5 from him, only 2/10 off of Cam, but there's still a long way in this qualifying session to go. And as we head and talk about what the drivers might be thinking about in terms of strategy, well, we've got the C3 tyres, the C2 and the C1, that's soft, medium and hard respectively. Now, soft tyres have a lifespan of around 13 to 15 laps, and they are half a second quicker than the medium tyres, so we're not really expecting, especially at a short track like this, or a short time track like this, I should say, less than 70 seconds we're lapping around here, you would find it hard for drivers to really think about the medium tyres if they're starting in the top 10, as Chris goes P3. Now, Ivan, well, I was going to say in P4, he's now down to P5 as Danestar puts it onto the front row of the grid, 108.4 in the Red Bull there. A real weekend and a real race tonight where both Red Bulls need to turn up. Vitinho is on the medium tyres. As I say that, he's now in 7th place at 109.2. And we're looking at it, pit stop loss here is around 19 to 20 seconds. So drivers are aware of this relatively short pit lane, but it's that pit lane exit that is going to catch some drivers out. It is so narrow through there, and it is so easy to lose a front wing on the pit lane exit. Compassion and Jarnell both retiring out of this session. Jarnell didn't leave his pit garage, I don't believe.
Yeah, he did. They both did, but they returned back to the pits just to log in their setups. And then both returned back to the pits to retire from the session. The statement from Janel was that he just wants, from both of them really, was that they want to give the viewers and the fans a show. And that's why they're both starting from the back deliberately.
Now that is one way to do it. That is, of course, the way. In terms of strategy, though, Austin, what are we thinking tonight then? Obviously, there's going to be a load of drivers starting on the soft tyres, but where do they go from there?
Well, it's a really tricky one because a lot of drivers that I talk to are expecting at least one safety car, so that obviously plays a role in their strategy and in their plans. However, if there is no safety car, let's just say that for a second, then the most likely outcome is that we're going to see 2 stints on softs and 1 stint on the mediums, with really the choice only being, for those inside the top 10, are they going to go on to the mediums after the first or after the second pit stop? Remember, it is a mandatory 2-stop here in 1-up for all tiers. So those drivers can't get away with 1 stop. You have to make 2. And then, because the softs are so durable, we're talking more than a third of the race length to be run on on 1 set of softs. That means that effectively we're getting 2 stints on the soft, 1 stint on the mediums, unless, again, safety car. At which point we might see what Janel has done before this season in Belgium, where he went into the pits twice under the safety car, under the same safety car, to then take the tyres to the very end of the race. If we see that here again, I would be surprised, because the mediums and the hards don't give you that much more duration out of them. The mediums only last around 19 laps at most, and the hards around 24 laps. So the hards only go 2/3 of the way. They don't go the full distance, or even near the full distance. It really makes no sense for a driver, if we get a safety car early on, lap 1, lap 2, lap 3, to try that sort of a strategy. So I'm really interested to see what the drivers are going to do. But 2 stints on the softs, 1 stint on the mediums, and then jumble them up as you will.
Yeah, Brett coming now into the pit lane there. Jarnell just in the chat there saying, please notice me, there's rain at the start of the race. So you have been noticed, Jarnell, and that is noted as we get there. Also, Anthony in the chat there saying that Cloudy Balloons is still on, no assist, still learning it on a new wheel. So that's not encouraging for Racing Point. But you never know, anything can happen. And if there is rain of the race, no, still got it wrong. Rain at the start of the race. I didn't know that was a tongue twister. I really didn't, but apparently so. If there is that, which I'm not going to say again, then it really does throw open the rule book here of what drivers have to do at what strategy on what lap. They're going to be kept right on their toes here as Scorpion comes towards the line to set a lap time. It is a 1:08.9. It's an improvement by just over a tenth of a second, but no improvement on position there. He stays in P6. Chris here, well, he has mixed feelings. He loves the track, but obviously he wants to be getting further up the field. He's only 2/10 off of that provisional pole position time as he makes his way across the start-finish line. Make that 3/10 now as Maurice sets the fastest lap of the session so far. Make that now just over a tenth as Chris now puts himself on the second row of the grid, third place at the moment. And no doubt that slipstream from Lukey going up the start-finish straight seems minimal, but it does make the difference.
Yeah, we've seen that plenty of times over the course of the season, obviously, on tracks like China, France, Austria. We've seen Canada as well, Germany. We've seen these slipstream games, Belgium, Kemmel Straight, obviously a big one too, where the drivers assist each other with the slipstream to really get the maximum out of the qualifying lap. And we see it once again. I think, honestly, considering their experience as teammates together, I don't think there's a team that does a better job at playing those slipstream games in qualifying than Chris and Lukey in the Ferrari. I mean, they've been in the Ferrari last season. They've returned for a second season with the same team, and they have so much experience with each other. They both... I mean, we had... Hold on, give me a second here. I'll try to find that in my notes right now. I think, yeah, Lukey said he would give Chris a 5.5 out of 10 for this season, although he also said Chris would probably give me the same rating because they both haven't been doing too well in the races so far this year. I mean, Lukey had a podium finally, his first podium last race, and Chris, on the other hand, I mean, he did have a podium in the first race, but since then, not much to show for either. So for both of them, from the highs of getting second in the Constructors and fighting for the Constructors Championship and fighting for the Drivers Championship as well, together, to effectively midfield running for both of them, it's been difficult this year. But they also said, I think Lukey said he learned from that, and Chris also learned from that. So we'll see what they're going to do next season.
Just watching out for Brett here. Obviously, the hot and cold ratings. The hot driver, the driver in form, is Brett. So watch out for him in this race. No lap time set in qualifying so far, but we have just got just over 7 minutes left of the session, so plenty of time for Brett to set a lap time. The driver that was rated cold was Keono, but I don't think he's here tonight, so that's unfortunate. He won't be here for the finale, unless I'm wrong.
That is Cloudy.
Ah, that would make sense.
That is Kovalainen, Kionosuke, Asahina, Cloudy. We call him Cloudy. He's gone through so many name changes. We are done with, adjusting to that. He's Cloudy.
He's Cloudy. So that's the rating then in this hot and cold, is Cloudy here. So obviously he's on a wheel. He's learning no assists. And it's still a 109.3 as Malloy now goes top of the table. 108 flat there as Ivan now makes it a 108.2 there from the Mercedes driver. And all of a sudden, Mercedes have pulled out this pace. And then 9th place in that Constructors. Oh, how they would have loved to have more races like this.
Yeah, definitely. They have been struggling for a while. But here they are, and this time around with Malloy, who didn't start out in the Mercedes. He himself as a driver has more points than the Mercedes team has. That is something that is quite peculiar. But he changed midway through the season, and since then only a 4th place in Canada and then a 10th in Germany, 11th in Belgium, and 13th in Britain. So it really went downhill for him. But we know he has the pace. I mean, he ended up... I was looking at the leaderboard times for most of the drivers again. And of all the drivers that I could find, which unfortunately wasn't everyone, I did not find, for some reason, Janul. I was looking through, but I could not find him. But of all the drivers I found, which was 18 of the 20, Meloy ended up in P4. So he definitely has some pace around this track with a 1 minute 7.8. And he's just two tenths off of that. In fact, he's just a tenth and a half off of that because it was a 107.878. So he's getting really close to his time trial time. And wouldn't be surprised if he gets that, because in these conditions, in this qualifying, obviously the track evolves. Plus you get slipstream from your teammate, hopefully. They work together with you. And that should improve the lap time further over what you're able to do in time trial.
Don't forget last race as well. Last time out, we had two drivers that had their first podiums of the season. We had Compassion there, who got second place on his first outing of the season, which was very impressive. And Lukey took that last podium spot there. That makes his first podium of the season. Lukey currently down in 11th place, and as we saw, Compassion retiring early on. Now, I think the rain at the start of the race may have had some sort of hand to play in that one. I think Jarno there, also, as you say, Austin, earlier on in the stream, he wants to put on a show, and with rain forecast for the beginning of the race, that's definitely going to be a show put on, regardless of what tyre he starts on.
Yeah, and I talked to him earlier. His original plan was, and I hope I'm allowed to reveal that now because we know it's going to be rain. His original plan was to go onto the mediums to start, which makes sense. Starting from the back, you go on to mediums. And then, as I said before, most drivers were going to go 2 stints of the softs. Or pretty much all drivers were, initially planning to. But yeah, so was he. And now that advantage, being on the mediums early on and then having them out of the way and 2 fast stints towards the end, that's gone out of the window. Everyone's going to start on intermediates now. And I'm very interested to see how he can handle that. I mean, we've seen him do well in rain conditions before this season, so it wouldn't surprise me if he does it again. Plus, he has no pressure. He's won the championship already, and all he needs, really, to clutch up the Constructors' title is effectively, I think, a P8, and that would do it. Considering he has 5 wins, and Red Bull has 2... that means that on countback, Red Bull wins, that all they need is 4 points, and then Toro Rosso, even with a 1-2 in the fastest lap, wouldn't be able to get him back. So P8 is all you need here tonight if you are a Toro Rosso driver. Or P9 and P10 and the fastest lap. That would also work.
Yeah, and of course Austin will be hot on the points here. We all know by now that my quick maths in my brain doesn't quite work, so we'll be leaving the points to Austin here. Here is Cloudy as he makes his way towards the line. This is to start a brand new lap in the Racing Point, 109.2. I wonder if he can break into the 108s, because the entire field of those that have set a lap so far separated by 1.3 seconds. Now, across 15 drivers, that's not so bad whatsoever. And of course, if you are interested in whatever happens in next season, for the season 16 on the brand new game of F1 2020, don't forget to check out onehub.racing.com there, and make sure you're following the league on Twitter at onehub.racing. Of course, our coverage is sponsored by Next Level Racing. Follow them on Twitter at NextLVL Racing. That's Next Lima Victor Lima Racing. Go ahead and follow our sponsors for tonight's race here, and of course the entire season. As we see Chris here on an outlap, he's saying he loves this track, currently on the second row. Can he have a shot of getting this pole position? Because the top 4 are separated by just over 1/10 of a second. Strap yourselves in. This is going to be a hectic 90 seconds.
Yeah, definitely. Chris is going to be one of the first ones here to come across the line. He will have another lap, and he does... oh, yeah, sorry, my bad. He was obviously on an out lap. But he's one of the first ones to start a lap. I mean, we have Brett, Khalifa, and Konzo also out there already on running laps. Konzo has just invalidated his. He has another shot at trying again. Brett's also invalid, so Khalifa is really going to be the first one here. And he has some traffic in front of him. That's thankfully gone out of the way. I couldn't even see who that was. Was that a Renault? No, that's a Renault right there, Maurice. I could not see who the previous guy was, but through the final real corner he goes. And now it's flat out through these left-hand kinks here of turns 13, 14, now 15. Hug the inside line. He doesn't do that, and he does improve by 0.07 of a second, but it's not an additional position. And I think that is the session almost over for him. He's going to try again, but I don't think he has enough ERS with only 15% now at the end of the back straight.
107.8 from Chris there.
And into the wall.
Matches around about his time trial time. He went purple through Sector 1. He got a load of slipstream there from the Williams ahead. That is going to be a very, very tough time to beat. Maurice is going to be out there. 108.0. Danestar comes across the line. 107.9 from the Red Bull driver, getting that second spot on the front row. Maurice is out there. Malloy is now making his way through that long left-hander of turn 11, going downhill now towards turn 12, the last braking zone. As you can see there, Malloy has just gone purple through sector 2, a 10th up on his previous best now. He's currently on the second row of the grid. Can he make any improvement whatsoever? There's just these left-handers to go. Foot is fully down on the floor, at least the right foot anyway. Malloy comes towards the line. No, 107.996, and he misses out on pole position by just over 1/10 of a second. Lukey has invalidated his lap time. Brett has gone purple through sector 2. What can the Williams driver do here as he makes his way towards that checker flag? Currently in P9, now down to P10 as someone's gone up the order. Brett can't improve though, at least on his position. He does improve his lap time. Scorpion is the last one out there. He's invalidated his lap time. So your pole sitter for the Brazilian Grand Prix is Chris. He said he loves this track, and he's just proved it there with a 107.8 and gets him that coveted pole position.
Yeah, and that is his second pole position in a row after he got one last week in Britain. Unfortunately, in Britain, it didn't end so well for him as he retired pretty early on. But this time around, another pole position, another chance to hopefully this time bring it home. But behind him, Danestar, Meloy, Maurice, Vitinho at his home race, certainly motivated, fired up. Ivan, Konzo, Lukey, Cam, Bretsta, all within half a second, the top 10. And then we have Khalifa, Cam, Scorpion, Iceman, Kelvin, Cloudy, and no times for Compassion and Janu as they elected to start from the back.
Yeah, it should be a very interesting race if the top 10 is covered by around 0.7 of a second. That should be very, very good indeed. We'll have to see how heavy this rain is at the start of the race. That's all we've been told, and the only person that's told us that is Jarno. That looks like intermediate conditions to me. It's light rain here at the circuit. We'll have to wait and see what the drivers are going to go through. Obviously, it will be declared a wet start, so DRS will be disabled, which means we won't get it on lap number 3. That looks to me, Austin, that's intermediate tyres. That's the perfect condition for them.
Yeah, definitely. It doesn't rain enough for full wets, but it obviously rains enough to stay away from the dry tyres completely here at the start of the race. So that's definitely going to be intermediate conditions. Usually we try to look into the garages to see if maybe we can catch a glimpse of which tyre the teams are going to choose, because usually they put out the tyre that they're going to use to show effectively for the world to see in the pit lane and in the pit boxes there. But I really can't tell. But it should be intermediate conditions.
Well, we all have to wait and see how it all goes down. And of course, Austin will be keeping a track of the positions for this first place in the Constructors' Championship here. And that is going to be one heck of a championship to watch out for. I mean, it is 40 points between Toro Rosso and Red Bull. Some of them might call Toro Rosso the junior team. They've proved anything but this season, with 5 wins and 6 podiums for the team compared to Red Bull's 2 wins and 5 podiums. It leaves them 40 points behind, does it, for Red Red Bull, so they've got it all to play for. They've got to make the best of this. They pretty much have to get 1-2s and try and get the fastest lap and hope that Toro Rosso just don't have a great race. Jarno down in 18th, Kelvin down in 15th place, so that's already a great start from them. But Dainstar and Vitinho, in the positions they start in, they won't do enough to seal this title.
Yeah, at this point, they're going to have to move up just that little bit further. But I think they're in a very good situation right now. I mean, you look at where Red Bull is, you look at where Toro Rosso is. Toro Rosso down 15th and 18th. Obviously, Jarno electing to start from the back, but still, it's a very bad position. And you have 2 Red Bulls in 2 and 5. I mean, it's not impossible to get a 1-2 out of that. And at that point, Jarno is going to have to fight through the field at least 10 positions, or Kelvin at least 7. Tricky to do in those rainy conditions.
Absolutely, but as we now make our way through that last breaking point of the circuit at turn 12, we then go up the hill through those treble left-handers all the way towards that start-finish line once again. Chris with his second consecutive pole position, I should say, back-to-back poles for the Englishman there in the Ferrari as he now makes his way towards the grid. The season finale here of season 15 here in the Precision tier here at the Brazilian Grand Prix at Sao Paulo. Of course, the coverage brought to you by Next Level Racing, Next LVL on Twitter, and of course you can check them out at nextlevelracing.com. You can also follow the league on Twitter at OneHub Racing. Don't forget as well that Nick has posted a brand new article that you can enjoy at your leisure, onehubracing.com. We now see the couple of last cars there, and Cloudy, Compassion and Jarno really taking their time here as they make their way towards their grid spots here. But you're supposedly having the racing lines on the right-hand side for Chris, but in these tricky conditions, the start and the clutch biting point is going to be as crucial as ever. We're moments away here from the Brazilian Grand Prix here in One Hub Racing Precision Tier, and as we count out towards the 5 red lights, we are underway. What are the starts like? That's a fantastic start from Chris. It's a great start from Dainstar as well. But you can see Chris cuts across to the inside to defend that from the Red Bull there. Malloy trying to find a way through or down the inside now as he heads through the centre S. They're all compacting in there. You've got a couple of cars off the track just on the inside and the infield there of turn 2. And it looks like there's a spin.
Oh my God, Konzo has spun in turn 3 and Janul was a part of that collision as well because of the spin from Konzo and a subsequent spin from Scorpion. We have a VSC, and that means Janul has damage, and significant damage. Right side front wing massively damaged on the driver's champion. He's already clutched that one up, but well, it's only a VSC, it's not a full-on safety car, so he's going to have to limp back to the pit lane once we're back to green. And he's going to have that front wing changed very early on. The question is, what is he going to do? Another set of inters? It has to be right now. And yeah, that could really throw a spanner into the works of Toro Rosso, trying to clinch the Constructors' title here.
Absolutely, that's going to be a huge spanner in the works then as a VSC is deployed on the very first lap here at the season finale of One Hub Racing. Chris still leads the way though. He managed to hold off Dainstar. Dainstar also managed to hold off Malloy then in 3rd place. The top 4 haven't changed positions at all in that starting rink, but you could see Chris got a great start as we're now back under green flag racing. Has Chris been caught napping here because he's going to be under pressure from 3 cars behind him as we make our way now on towards turn 1. This is going to be incredibly close down towards turn 1. This front wing end plate that's flown off a car there. You got multiple cars understeering off the track, and Chris has just held on to second place. Khalifa's gone around now in towards turn 2. He's facing the wrong way at this moment in time as he tries to get that car back out on track. Maurice, out of all of that, he was P5 before this VSC ended. He's now leading this race. The Renault driver, ever the opportunistic move, now moves into the lead of the race. Chris second, Dainstar in 3rd, Malloy in 4th, with Ivan in 5th place there. Vitinho is currently in 6th place, but you can see there Dainstar will be hugely frustrated at that one. He had a great chance to get past Chris there, and it's almost like Chris was almost caught napping there at the beginning of that VSC. Whether he just didn't expect it to end that quickly, or in any other case, he just didn't look ready to restart.
Yeah, it seemed so. Meanwhile, you talked about the front wing end plate flying. That was from ART Ivan. He has the right side end plate missing. I'm trying to look through the field to see if we have anything else missing on any of the front wings there, but at least in the top 8 everything seems fine. I'm trying to... It's really hard to figure it out properly, but yeah, in the top 8 everything apart from Ivan is fine. Everyone's good on their front wings.
Dainstar looked down the inside of Chris there in towards turn 1, but Chris made his feelings perfectly clear. He does not want to let Dainstar through whatsoever. They head through turn 2, and Chris is just about holding on. That was Compassion there, getting a little bit of oversteer going through turn 1. He might have had a little bit of a contact there, but Lukey and him are now battling all the way through turn 3. Meanwhile, we're watching Dainstar. Will he have a move down the inside into turn 4? Not quite close enough to try that move. Meanwhile, Compassion and Lukey podium
Oh, here
finishes.
goes Dainstar! Dainstar, Chris ran wide in turn 4 on the exit of turn 4. Dainstar saw his opportunity there. Now the cutback here through Ferradura. It's not there. Chris has the upper hand, but again goes a little bit too deep. Misses the apex there quite significantly. Dainstar still behind. Now we're in the infield, as I like to call it. And it's really hard to overtake here. Oh, there you go. Dainstar sending it into turn 10. What a move out of absolutely nowhere. He just flies down the inside, gets the position, takes it off of Chris. Up into P2 he goes.
Yeah, fantastic move from Dainstar. He just saw that door open and thought, you know what? If you're not going to close that, I'm going to take full advantage. Up now to second place he goes. Compassion has stayed ahead of Lukey, but we've got a Mercedes round. It's Ivan who's lost it at turn 12. So that must have been on that loud pedal just a little bit too much, and he spun up the rear tyres and spun himself around. Vitinho, meanwhile, putting pressure on Cam, but he's also under pressure from Compassion behind. Cam trying to hold off the Red Bull. In towards turn 2 we go, and that is the McLaren taking full advantage of a poor line from Vitinho, and Compassion says, thank you very much, I'll take that away from you. He's now going to put Cam under pressure then as we head down towards turn 4. There you can see Malloy trying to go down the inside of the Ferrari of Chris then. Do they make contact going through turn 4? Now through turn 5, Malloy I think has let Chris back through, and Chris has now let the Mercedes back through going up towards turn 5, so a little bit awkward there for the both of them, but I think they've sorted themselves out. Compassion moves ahead of Cam, and now up to 5th place he will go. Lukey is right on the tail of that Red Bull of Vitinho, looking to ruin the Red Bull's day. Of course, it's heavily in the favour of the Toro Rossos, and both of them are still outside the points. Kelvin P13, Jarno P17.
Yeah, but Vitinho is a little bit too far away from that number 2 spot, which is currently occupied by his teammate Dainstar, who is trying to make inroads on Maurice in the lead. The gap down to 1.2 seconds. It was at 2 seconds almost.
That is Brett there getting a move done on Iceman round the outside on turn 11 into turn 12. A great move from the Williams driver. He's now up to P9. Now Iceman's got to deal with the other Williams, who just simply flies past him down this start-finish straight, and Konzo made that move look way too easy in towards turn 1. Can he keep it all together? Yes, he can. And you can see there Lukey in that Ferrari getting a little bit wayward going through turn 1. He had too much understeer, and Brett is going to take that as an invitation heading down the back straight going towards turn 4. I don't think Brett's just close enough yet to try a move down there, but he's certainly right on the back of Lukey, and Lukey running deep into turn 4. Is that going to hand that position to Brett? You bet it will. The Ferrari now falls down to P9, and Brett says, thank you very much, I'll take that P8 away from you. He doesn't need a second invitation there, and now his next target is Vitinho.
Yeah, and unless you practice in the rain, it's always tricky because you have to adjust every single braking marker that you've set yourself when you were practicing in the dry. Because all of a sudden in the rain, obviously with less grip, those braking zones get longer and longer, and you have to brake earlier and earlier. So it's really, really tricky if you haven't practiced. And it seems like maybe that's what caught Lukey out. I don't know if he did practice in wet conditions around Brazil, but going by how much he missed that braking point there into turn 4, I would assume that he didn't. Here goes Bretza on Vitinho for P7. That really doesn't help the Red Bull boys here, who are still trying to clutch the Constructors' Championship, but Vitinho trying to hold it around the outside. It wasn't there, and Bretza just down the inside takes that position very early on through the center S. And remember, rain conditions means no DRS.
I'll tell you what, the rain has stopped. here at Sao Paulo. It stopped completely. Chris going for a move down the inside at turn 4. Not going to work. The move was never on. The door was not open. And Chris now makes that contact, and it sends him all the way down the order. That looks like a pause to me. Is that going to be a little bit of a decision to make here? And that's, well, that's Cloudy, who's made a severe he's got 5-second time penalty for a severe collision with Ivan there. So
and he spins into the wall, into the pit wall, right on the pit exit there. And that is the growing pains of learning no assists. If you have been driving with assists for a long time, that's exactly what we're seeing here, unfortunately. And once again for Cloudy, it's an absolute disaster. It's not the first time, but yeah, it has stopped raining. The question is, when is the crossover point? It seems like it's already almost there. Maurice stays out. Dainstar as well. He's caught up very well with Maurice. They're side by side here across the line to start lap 7. Dainstar much later on the brakes. Look at that. Makes it look absolutely easy.
And a great move from him. He moves now up to the lead of the race. Meanwhile, behind, that is Cam and Kelvin, I believe, battling away in through turn 1. Cam just couldn't quite get the traction down there, but Iceman is going to run deep through 2. Now Cam is going to go sailing round the outside at turn 3 and makes that move really look easy. Brett, meanwhile, on the outside of Cam, heading in towards turn 4. And is there something I've missed there, Austin?
Yeah, there is a double stack at Ferrari. Once again, the Ferrari strategy crew doing what they do best and completely messing this up. Both drivers switching onto dry tires after just 6 laps. And Chris was held up massively there, in part because Lukey had to change his front wing. And now, oh my goodness, Chris completely making a mockery of that first left-hand corner on the pit exit. And hitting the wall there, no damage thankfully, but he did brush the wall there just barely. At least that's what it looked like from my perspective. If he didn't, apologies, but that's what it looked like. My goodness. And yeah, it's not yet the conditions there as Chris is struggling mightily on those dry tires. It's too early, and Dainstar knows this. Maurice knows this. They see that, and they stay out as Cam now retires. That is, that is the Alonso spot there. That is turn 14, 15, right between them. That is where Alonso suffered injuries, really.
Yeah, back in 2003, yeah, it's not a great place, but we're still racing on. There's just yellow flags, local yellows covering that instance so far, and there's no need from the steward's point of view to throw out a full safety car here. Meanwhile, Brett was coming close to contact there with a car in front a couple of laps ago. Cam has come into the pits. That's NZL Cam, who now rejoins back onto the circuit.
We call him British Cam.
Oh, we call him British Cam. Oh, he's got into the back of the Toro Rosso of Jarno. Oh, no. That must have been reduced braking ability there on those slick tyres, and Cam just could not stop that freight train of a car on these slick tyres. The track does look much better than it did a lap ago, but clearly the braking points are not there just yet.
Yeah, that is something that can be very deceiving. There is Cloudy, who also spun around there into turn 8 on the entry to turn 8, and yeah, it's something that can be very deceptive, very deceiving. And we see it right here. A lot of drivers think that they look at the track on their T-cam, and they look at it and they think, look, that's dry. I mean, why would I not switch on to dry tires? Yeah, it isn't dry. There's still water on track, and it's hardly visible, but it's still there. The grip isn't there as now more and more cars come in. We still have Dainstar, Maurice, Meloy, Konzo, Calvin, and we had something similar. Now is the crossover point. Now that DRS is enabled, now is the crossover point. So those who have come in, who are now coming out, like Compassion, like Brett, Vitinho, Iceman, Lukey, well, Lukey's been there for 2 laps, but Janul, British Cam, Scorpion, they've all done the right choice here, coming in right now before the crossover point was reached and getting back out after the crossover point was reached. But I don't think it's that wrong of a decision from Dainstar, Maurice, Meloy, Konzo and Kelvin to stay out a little bit longer and come in now. Surely they're going to come in now.
Well, Chris here is trying to take this position away from Scorpion, and you can see now down that back straight, Chris has the much better run as the pit lane really compromises your exit out of turn 3, but Scorpion's managed to hold on at this moment in time. You can see with Chris, even though he's on the soft tyres, you can see that understeer on those tyres still in this part of the race, and he's right on the back of that McLaren. And of course, you do have a mandatory 2-stop race here, but of course these intermediate conditions are going to throw everything at the rulebook here. Chris going up the inside as we head in towards turn 8, now going towards turn 9. You can see there Chris just didn't quite have the grip there as he's now trying around the outside at 9. Tail flicks out there, a little bit of a Scandinavian flick from the Ferrari. Now down the inside of turn 10. Fair play to these two. In these slightly less grippy conditions, they gave each other plenty of room, and eventually the McLaren concedes defeat and moves down a position there. Konzo rejoins in P6 behind his teammate, and they pretty much split that strategy perfectly. You had Brett there, who came into the pits just before that DRS went online, whilst Konzo was out on track about halfway round the circuit when DRS was activated. So they timed that as well as they could, the Williams boys there. Good job from them.
Yeah, very much so. Very well done on their part, and very well done as well for Dane Summaries Melloy to just be patient. Sometimes when you have these switching, these transitioning conditions, it really pays off to be patient and to wait until you get that message that it says DRS enable, that you get from race control, effectively telling you it's dry enough for dry tires, it's dry enough for DRS, and you can come in now. That's usually what I'm always waiting for. It's better to be half a lap late than to be 3 laps early, as we saw with Lukey, with Khalifa, with Chris, with Ivan, who are finding themselves either outside the top 10 or barely inside the top 10 in Lukey's case.
Malloy and Maurice running side by side down the back straight, heading towards turn 4. You can see that Mercedes has the inside line. He grabs that apex with both hands and doesn't let go. Malloy then heads up to second place, and now he's 3.5 seconds back from Danestar. Danestar, the Icelandic man, looking to make it back-to-back wins.
Yeah, and why wouldn't you try? I mean, again, the Constructors' Championship is still on the line for Red Bull. He's doing everything he can. I mean, how much more can he do apart from winning the race? It's Vitinho at this point who needs to step it up just a bit more. He's 13 seconds behind Meloy, behind that second place Red Bull so desperately needs. Even a third place wouldn't, although a third place at this point would actually be enough. Oh no, it wouldn't, sorry, because Kelvin is in P9. But if Kelvin drops back further and gets overtaken by Lukey and Khalifa maybe, then we have one more pit stop to go for everyone. We got to remember that. Apart from Janel and Cam and Scorpion, interestingly, and Cloudy, who've done their 2 pit stops. But if he does drop back further, a first and a third would be enough if they get the fastest lap on top. As long as Toro Rosso has both drivers outside the top 10.
Well, you can see Compassion now looking to put the pressure under Maurice then as he heads now up the hill towards turns 5 and 6. Malloy then is struggling for grip in that first part of turn 5 as we head through 6, then in towards turn 7 and 8 here, down the hill through turn 9. And of course, it's an interesting corner, turn 9. It's downhill on entry, and then on exit, just as you clip that apex, you're then climbing again. So that can help the back end stay in check, but then you've got the exit of 10 there, where it's that bump. It's almost like Suzuka there, but not as severe. That little bump on the exit of 10 can really unsettle the car. And if you're too heavy on that loud pedal, you can find yourself spinning that car around. Compassion, meanwhile, on the back of Maurice. Maurice should have some DRS then, just from Malloy, but he doesn't. So no DRS for Maurice, and here comes Compassion in the slipstream, moving now to the right-hand side of the track. He has to go the long way round in towards turn 1. The Renault's still on the inside. That'll be the outside for turn 2. And look at that then, Compassion halfway through the Centre S gets that move done. He moves up to P3, and that's a great showing from Compassion so far. If he's here for Season 20, he'll be one to watch. Oh, sorry, Season 16. He will be one to watch. It was F1 2020 that made me forget my numbers there. But yes, next season, he is one to watch. And I wonder, actually, Austin, looking at those skies, I have to be honest with you, I'm not confident that the sun's coming out anytime soon.
Yeah, it could be what we did in the charity race that we have starting on the rain, then it gets dry, then it gets rainy again. That could very well happen here again. This time we didn't control the weather. I think we need to say that. You know, in the charity event, we were allowed and able to control the weather. This time around, we are not. And this is completely the dynamic weather. But this is what could happen. We have a yellow flag in Sector 3. Yeah, I think that might... I thought it might have been cloudy again. But yeah, it's Ivan, in fact. And he's going into the pit lane.
That's Chris down the inside of Cam then as we head now through turn 5 and then up the hill as we head towards that double right-hander of 6 and 7. Compassion setting the fastest lap of the race. He means business now as you can see the gap between Dainstar and Malloy has come down to 2 seconds. That's about 2-3 laps and that gap's come down by 1.5 seconds. Ivan retiring from the race. I don't think that's too much of a surprise. He's spun in the last 4 laps there twice on the exit of turns 12 and 13. So I think he's just simply thrown in the towel for this season. Unfortunately for him, but that Mercedes will be running no more in this race. That's a shame. They had a good run in qualifying, 1 and 2 at one point in that qualifying session. The sole Mercedes of Malloy then trying to hold off from Compassion and Maurice for that second place. But what does Malloy do? Does he focus on trying to close down that gap to Dainstar, which is now increasing to 2.2 seconds, or does he focus on defending from Compassion and lose that time to Dainstar having to defend? That's going to be a call that he has to make.
If I was in his footsteps, or in his shoes rather, got that wrong. If I was in his shoes, I would at this point not bother defending. We are just over a third into the race. We still have 22 laps to go at this point. We're not even at the halfway point. Here comes Compassion to the inside. Yep, Mello just effectively rolling out the red carpet, say, yeah, you go. You lead the way. You try and bring me closer to Dainstar. Because Compassion clearly has the pace. I mean, he's distanced Maurice by over a second in a lap. If Mello is able to stay with Compassion here, he still has a chance at winning the race. So all he needs to do is try and stick with that McLaren in front of him and try to let him lead the way closer to the leader, who is Dainstar right now.
Well, the great thing about this is we've got, I think that's Cloudy, again, having a little bit of a spin. He's actually on wet tyres. Maybe he's seen some weather forecast that we haven't, but I think he's might be getting a little bit of a drift on eventually. Oh, as that's Luke and Kelvin. Might have been a little bit of a decent because they both headed into turn 4 there, but luckily they managed to sort themselves out. Luke now in 9th with Kelvin now in P10. That's not going to help for Toro Rosso here. The thing is, though, that drivers are going to be going to the stewards, complaining and basically appealing this 2-stop rule. They'll think that the intermediate run at the start means that they don't have to 2-stop anymore, but that is actually part of it. The intermediate stint at the start does count as your stop, and it doesn't mean that the 2-stop is thrown out of the window. You still have to make 2 stops here. It's only in those really, really freak wet weather settings and wet weather forecasts that the 2-stop gets thrown out of the window, but you still have to make it, that is for sure. And those running on the soft tyres will be realising that they have to save tyres at some point. If they're looking to try and make these tyres last, they've got a lifespan of maximum 15 laps before you really start to have tyres that just go off the cliff completely. We've got 21 laps to go, so they've got to make them last at least another 6 or 7 laps.
Yeah, just to clear up on the rules state that the 2-stop never goes out of the window, not even in any crazy scenario. The 2-stop is always there. You can go for 3 stops if you have a scenario where you start you start in light rain, then it gets dry, then it gets rainy again, then it gets dry again, and the 3-stop is the quicker strategy. Of course, you're allowed to do more than 2 pit stops. We see Cloudy right now on his 6th stop. Obviously, it doesn't help him right now, but you are allowed to do more. But 2 stops is the minimum under any circumstance, not just if it's not too wet or anything. No, you have to make 2 pit stops no matter what happens.
I think Cloudy here, I mean, he's having a bit of fun on those wet tyres, but in the long run, if he sticks around, if he keeps that car on the track, remember, he still has a chance to get the fastest lap bonus point outside of the top 10, so that's open to him. But at the moment on those wet tyres, I mean, he's just gone through turn 5 there, absolutely no grip for him, and he is already a lap down, so he will ghost automatically whenever he comes across another car. So that's probably why he's on those wet tyres, so it's easier to just get past him. in these conditions. However, Danestar leads 1.3 seconds ahead of Compassion. Malloy trying to put that McLaren under a little bit of pressure. You can see Maurice has really dropped away from the top three. Now 3.1 behind Malloy. Brett there as the red driver, the hot driver right now, the driver in form. He's 6 seconds behind Maurice right now, but the head of his teammate here, 5th and 6th for the Williams so far. Vitinho there in 7th place with Iceman in 8th, Lukey in 9th, Kelvin rounding out the top 10, Jarno in 11th place with Khalifa in 12th, Chris is in 13th place, but him and Cam have been battling for quite some time now, and Cam is in 14th place. Scorpion meanwhile put on the hard tyres where he's made one stop, and surely he's not going to forget the rules that he has to stop again, surely not. No,
he has made 2 pit stops.
Oh, has he?
He has, yes. Scorpion can go to the end if he so chooses. He's gone from intermediates back to intermediates and then on to the hards. His first pit stop was at the end of lap 1. And so he was one of the drivers to come in with a front wing for a front wing change. And so that was his first pit stop. And then his second on to the hard tyre. Smart call there from him. But it is a 2-stop already for him. The drivers who already have done their 2 stops are Janul. He also came in for a front wing change lap 1. And as I mentioned, Scorpion and British Cam in 14th. For him, let me quickly check what happened there. He went from intermediates to softs for 1 lap to go on to the mediums right after. So for him, it wasn't a lap 1 front wing change. For him, it was a calculation to just pit twice very quickly and then try to take the mediums to the end.
Well, I can see here that Cam and Chris are just having a little bit of a battle between themselves. Chris ran wide on the exit of 4, entry to 5, and Cam just sort of let off the accelerator. He wants a battle with Chris here, P13 and 14 at this moment in time, and maybe they're thinking, well, this is the race done and dusted, it's the last race of the season, let's have a bit of fun. But I'm sure Chris would have wanted to be higher up the order, so too did Cam. Danestar leads though still by 1.2 seconds ahead of the McLaren of Compassion. Malloy in the Mercedes is in 3rd place, Maurice 4th with Brett in 5th, Konzo 6th with Vitinho in 7th, Iceman 8th, Lukey in 9th, and Kelvin rounding out that top 10 with Chris and Cam pretty much the closest battle on track at the moment for P13. Less than 0.2 per second separates them.
Yeah, meanwhile, if we do look ahead, as you mentioned, Compassionate Malloy, what I mentioned earlier, and, you know, I'm not one to pat myself on the back. Wait, never mind, I am. What I said earlier with Malloy just letting Compassion pass and then let Compassion pull Malloy towards Danestar. This is exactly how it works out right now. The gap just over a second between Danestar and Compassion. Malloy still within that 1 second gap of Compassion, so he's definitely a part of that battle for the win. And it just works out fantastically. Good call there from Malloy to recognize that Compassion was the faster driver in that very moment. Just let him by and try to effectively piggyback him.
The Williams as well are working together as Brett pulled to one side, allowed Konzo to go through as the sun is starting to peek through here and make its entrance here at the track. We've got a yellow flag, and that's the racing point of Cloudy around again, unfortunately, at turn 9. It's not been his day, but to be honest with you, when you're on no assists and learning them, and you're on a wheel as well, I mean, it is a baptism of fire to have it at the season finale, that is for sure. But I'm sure he'll just be using this as valuable track time for the next race. He races on an F1 2019, which is probably doesn't exist, actually, now that you think about it, with a new game cycle so close. But at least he's getting that experience there to get onto the wheel. It's a huge leap forward, and especially when on no assist. I remember all those years ago when I decided that I was actually okay at racing. I turned off assist for the first time. I only have 1 assist on nowadays, and that's corners only with the racing line. Nevertheless, everything else is turned off, and I remember how difficult that jump actually was. It's not easy to get to grips with at the start, but the more time you put in now, the better you get. And simply, I'm glad he hasn't retired, because this is a good opportunity for him. Well, he's burning through tyres by the lap and by the pit stop, but nevertheless, he's still giving it his all. He's still using this as a practice session, which, you know, isn't too bad in the long run.
Yeah, the one thing, though, that needs to be said about Cloudy is that he, at this point, really is not eligible for the fastest lap of the race, because he's already 5 laps down on the leader, and that means, unless he unlaps himself twice, he will not be within the 90% rule that he has completed, as we have Compassion now going into the pits. Compassion, the first one to pull the trigger and go into the pits for what will be a new set of softs, as Cloudy has now left the session, so his car is now being controlled by the AI. It's still driving around, but I mean, it doesn't matter at this point. Where's Compassion going to come back out? Oh, this is going to be close with Vitinho. I think he should be ahead of Vitinho, though. Yeah, and he is now on the pit. Yeah, definitely ahead of Vitinho. Misjudged that a little bit. But let's see, 19... And there's... Oh, that was a good pit stop. 19 seconds. Usually you lose about 19 and a half. He lost about 18 and a half seconds in the pits. So that must have been a really good pit stop, and that could put him straight up into the lead. This undercut might pay off heavily for Compassion.
But will those tyres get to the end? That's the thing that's got to be on those drivers' mind. Yeah, you reckon they will? All right, I'll hold you to that. I will definitely hold you to that. Dainstar and Malloy then, well, they have to respond if that's the case.
Yes,
let's see
definitely.
If the Red Bull and the Mercedes come into the pits and Malloy stays out. He stays out in that Mercedes, Dainstar in.
That is surprising, but at the same time, you like to stick to your strategy. And for Malloy, I don't really feel like it makes sense. As he gets the 3-second time penalty, as we're talking about him, for corner cutting in the Senna S, but I don't think it makes sense. Right now, you're on 13-lap old softs. It's going to be 14 laps at the end of this one.
It's going to be close on the pit
and
exit.
It's going to be it's going to be another 13 laps, and yep, Compassion has it. Compassion has it right there. As I said, the undercut paying dividends right there for the McLaren driver, now into the net lead. Yeah, Malloy, you always want your last stint to be the longest if you're on the same tyre, because the longer you go into the race, the less fuel you have in your tank. There's no refueling in F1, we know that. So less fuel in the tank means, at the same time, slightly less tyre wear, because obviously the weight of the car isn't as high. It's a little bit more nimble, a little bit better to maneuver and to save tyres while not losing time. As Mello now comes in for after a 14-lap stint on the softs with 13 laps remaining. Again, I think he should have come in a lap earlier.
Well, let's see then. Compassion and Dainstar are coming around those final treble left-handers there as they head on towards the start-finish line. Malloy and Bretster into the pits then as they make their way towards their box. Compassion sets the fastest lap of the race, 1:09.9 then. Just under 70 seconds it takes to lap this circuit now, and you can see already that lead that Compassion is going to have, even Dainstar is going to have over Malloy then. It's going to be a huge
2
one.
seconds.
2 seconds he's lost there by staying out 2 extra laps behind Compassion. And it's actually 2.8 when you compare it to Compassion there that he's lost. So big loss there for Malloy. He's going to have to make it up. So as you say, he's on fresher tyres, and in theory, on a lighter fuel load, he's got to make that advantage work now.
Yeah, but the difference is so minor. Remember, the softs last 13 to 15 laps. None of the drivers are going to struggle. I mean, maybe they're going to struggle a bit towards the end, but they're not going to struggle into what I like to call puncture territory, which is around 75% tyre wear. They're not going to get there. It's going to be, as British Cam now retires from the session, don't know what happened to him, but this, seems like it's in the pit lane. He's probably had enough. And, yeah, it's going to be interesting in terms of grip. It's not going to be that any of these drivers get close to a puncture. Mello certainly not, Dainstar not, and even Compassion isn't going to. And the difference between now 1 lap old softs and then 3 lap old softs for Compassion is so minute that I don't think Mello is going to be able to catch back up. This right now really is just between Dainstar and Compassion, and Dainstar might have the upper hand, considering A, he's within a second, B, that DRS is quite powerful because the straight, the curved straight from turn 12 from Jungsao all the way to the Senna S is so long, or even just to the finish line is that long. And number 3, he has slightly better tyres. In this sort of battle, where you are close to another car and you have DRS, this is an advantage. Melloy is just a bit too far away, I think, to catch back up to these two.
Absolutely. He's got to make these next couple of laps count then. 11 laps to go when we cross that line as Compassion leads the way. Dainstar in second place as now Cloudy Balloons has retired from the race. And I'm trying to see where his icon is. And there's safety car. Safety car deployed.
That changes everything. That means Nexus Iceman and Kelvin get a free pit stop effectively.
Well, what's caused the safety car though?
That is a good question. I don't know.
Well, there is the safety car emerging from the pit lane. I actually can't see the Racing Point car out there. So maybe there's something, maybe it was involved in a crash? I'm not entirely sure.
I think I know where it is, and I think it is right behind the safety car right now.
Oh, I see. Well, in any case...
Oh no, those are the two Williams, my bad.
Well, whatever's happened to that Racing Point, it's triggered the safety car here, with 14 cars still in the running. I bet Cam's kicking himself now because he retired not just a lap ago, and now we've got a safety car with 11 laps to go. So the race order is effectively frozen at this point in time. Let's see which drivers come into the pit. Scorpion has pitted. It's going to be very tight, actually. He's going to make it, but Compassion stays out. He dummied.
Dummies. Yeah.
he
tried to dummy Dainstar into going in. Dainstar's having none of it. Meloy stays out. Everyone who just pitted is going to stay out. I think that's the clear thing here. If you're on old tires, or if you're on medium or hard tires, yes, you're going to come in, as we saw, with Janul, with Iceman, with Kelvin, with Scorpion. If you're on old tires, if you're on medium tires, if you wouldn't have made it to the end otherwise, you're coming in. In any other scenario, no one else is coming in. And we see that right here. Everyone's done now with their pit stops. We have a Red Bull on the start finish straight. That's Vitinho. Yeah, none of them are going to come in. And this is going to be a sprint now to the end. This is effectively, at this point, the order is frozen. We're going to drive around a little bit, and then we are going to have about, depending on when the safety car comes in, I would assume, let's say, what is it gonna, I think it's going to come in next lap. I don't think it's going to come in right away right now. So that would be another 8 laps. Lap 28 complete, and then, 8 laps. An 8-lap sprint race, effectively.
I don't know. I'm gonna hedge my bets and say lap 29 is when we'll get, well, lap 29/30 is when we'll get things restarted. I'm gonna
end of lap 29.
Well, yeah, I think because if we don't know where that Racing Point actually went, because I
mean, it's gone now.
Well, I think it'll be next lap. It will come in. I don't think it'll be this lap because you've got so many cars that are still really yet to catch up to that threshold. Obviously, Compassion, when the safety car comes in, will take over that role as the effective safety car. They can't overtake until they're beyond that start-finish line as well under those safety car rules. So this should be an interesting one. Compassion here, I wonder how his nerves are feeling. Only his second race here in One Hub this season, and already has a chance of winning the race. Bear in mind, he finished second last time out as well. That's going to be one heck of a drive for him. He's definitely going to be on some teams' radars for the next season, of course, if he's with us next season.
Yeah, if I was a team owner and I was looking for a driver, and the Red Bulls, the Ferraris, the Mercedes of this world, I'd be looking at Compassion as a serious driver for next season to throw into my car. But we'll see. At the end of the day, it's also a driver's decision. Compassion himself can choose who he applies to or applies for. As we have Scorpion getting closer and closer. Will we get the notification? We should get it in about 3 seconds. If we get it for this lap, we do get it. There you go. I'm a psychic.
You're too good.
I'm a psychic.
Absolutely too good at this. Well, Compassion now takes over that role as the lead car. As they head towards the line, you can see Dainstar is very eager to get things started.
Single file, my friends. Single file.
Well, we're heading now.
I don't know what Dainstar's doing there. Compassion uses that now. That little bit of discombobulation there by Dainstar to floor it and restart the race, and I think it's a good job from Compassion. Catching Dainstar not really napping, but certainly in a bit of state of confusion there, as he was pushing a little bit too hard in the single file situation. Dainstar now trying to get as much slipstream, maybe make an overtake happen already. I think it's a bit early. But yeah, 8-lap sprint race. This is going to be all the action of your normal F1 race distilled into 8 laps.
Hold on to your hats for this one. This is going to be fantastic. Compassion has shown good pace throughout this race. Jarno, meanwhile, up the inside of Luki as we now make our way in towards turn number 8. And the Toro Rosso has got up to 8th place. That was such an important position, but they make contact going in towards turn 9. Jarno still on the outside. Luki gives him plenty of room on the exit as they head now in towards turn 10. This is so crucial here for Jarno. He has to get this 8th place, and he does. The Toro Rosso now up into that crucial finishing position with Vitinho just ahead of him. He'll feel good about that one because no matter what happens up ahead of him now, he's in a great position. If he can pass Vitinho, even better.
Yeah, I mean, all he needs to be is...
Big crash! Khalifa and Luki coming together just at the final corner there, and another safety car is deployed, and I'm not entirely surprised. They both come together, both out of the race, and the race is on hold for the second safety car in around 3 laps. But no surprise there. That is going to take some clearance there. I'm just going to have a look back on the stream and see what exactly happened there, because I did get a good view of that for the stream watchers out there. The Ferrari looks like something snaps, or there's something gone wrong with the steering there for Luki, as then Khalifa is just collected, innocent bystander really. So they both come together, both out of this race. We're now down to 12 runners.
Yeah, I don't really know what happened there. I'm watching it back as well, because on my screen, I wasn't on that at all, so I had to watch it back. To me, it almost looked like maybe there's an issue with the steering. Maybe Luki just didn't realize that he had someone on his outside and had to, as they say, lever the space. And they just tangled up in a very, very unfortunate angle and a very unfortunate situation where one car was just a bit more than half a car length, in this case Luki, ahead of Khalifa, and therefore one spun the other into the wall. They both go into the wall, and a massive crash there between the two of them. But we will get another safety car, and Compassion again dictating the tempo. And once again, if I may give Dainstar some advice, I hope he's listening. It's single file. You're not supposed to run next to the car in front.
Well, the safety car now picks them up on the entrance into turn 4, and we get safety car conditions all over again. I wouldn't be surprised if the safety car comes in this lap, to be honest with you. Okay, it's going to take some chances and take some time to clear that car up, but obviously the safety car there only has a limited corner speed, and although it's got a very powerful engine, it can't match these Formula 1 cars designed to accelerate so quickly off the line. I can only imagine that it's going to be safety car for 1 lap, and if we're unlucky it'll be 2 laps, but it will give us 4 or 5 laps of racing to get to that checkered flag. More fuel being saved, more ERS being saved, even though you can only save it to a certain point, but this will pretty much make it so that drivers will run rich mix to the end of the race, surely.
Yeah, very likely, and probably high ERS mode as well. And there we go, we get the notification very late this time, just before turn... Although, no, not very late, my bad. It's exactly where we were supposed to get it, at the end of the second sector. And now Compassion once again Dainstar. Look at this again, side by side. What is he doing? Yep, there's the overtake. And there's Compassion just saying, I played you. What are you doing? It's single file, and I'm gone.
Well, there he goes then all the way through, and now Malloy has a chance to try and get past the Red Bull here as we go green again here at Brazil. Is there a chance for Malloy? Well, he runs deep in towards turn 1. Maurice tries a move up the inside and gets a little bit sideways as he makes contact going all the way through turn 3 now, and no way through for Maurice there. That's a chance wasted for the Renault driver. Jarno, meanwhile, has a chance against Vitinho down the inside of turn 4. Can he be the last of the late breakers? He's definitely going to try it up the inside. This is going to be a move he'll satisfy himself with as he makes his way through turn 5 and gets the move done. And as it stands now, Jarno's in complete control of that Toro Rosso, winning the Constructors' Championship right now as he moves up to 7th place. Despite Dainstar's best efforts, Vitinho really needs to be up with him in these last couple of laps. We've seen a huge crash just on that safety car restart last time around. Let's see what happens this time around, but Compassion once again nailing on that safety car restart, and he's leading this way. Dainstar almost caught up from Malloy behind him. Third place there for him. Maurice tried to take advantage but made contact, went sideways and lost a mountain of time. There in fourth place, Brighton fifth, Konzo sixth, Jarno in seventh. A crucial position for him starting from the back of the grid, seventh place. But to be honest with you, with front wing damage early on in this race, he could have easily written himself off. He didn't. He stayed in there, seventh place, and a great chance of sealing this Constructors' Championship for Toro Rosso.
Yeah, one thing that needs to be said here really about the mandatory two-stop, that allows drivers to not write themselves off even if they do get that front wing damage. Usually in normal league racing you have one stop, and if you have to do that in lap one, at the end of lap one, effectively your race is almost over, unsalvageable. If you have two stops, you can still go with two sets of tires, two stints that are effectively half the race long, and that usually works out. You don't have to go into the hardest compound, you can usually choose the medium to do so, and it's just much more salvageable, and we see it right here. Plus the rain obviously helped as well at the start of the race to allow him to get that two-stop done, although it really is for Jano right now. I think a three-stop, yes it is, because he did obviously pit for those soft tires when the safety car came out.
Well, we have now 3 laps to go. DRS is online now for the last 3 laps of this race. Jarno is looking to try and find a way past Konzo. He's got to go round the outside at turn 1. A little bit of contact with the side pod there of the Williams. He backs out of it entirely, but now tries to open himself up to have a good run through turn 3, down the back straight towards turn 4. You can see there the Williams slams that door shut. Jarno has to now switch it to the outside, heading in towards turn 4, and that Williams is not going to make this easy for Jarno whatsoever as they now make their way through turn 5, up the hill now, narrowest part of the track as we head in towards turn 6, and Jarno realises there's no way through for him whatsoever. The penalties are looking pretty ominous right now as Maurice picks up a 3-second time penalty, and with a field this close towards the end of the race, that's going to hurt you big style here. We'll have to check the penalty soon. If not, we'll just find out as they cross the line then, as there's not long to go, just about 10 kilometres in this race to go, maybe a bit less than that, as the cars file their way there. Lovely camera angle as they head through turn 11, but Compassion importantly is outside of DRS range ahead of Dainstar here, and Compassion on his second race here in One Hub Racing, leading on the penultimate lap of this race. You couldn't write this stuff. Jarno looking to switch to the outside there as he now makes his way in towards turn 1, round the outside. That'll become the inside line as he heads in towards turn 2, and he's got ahead of the Williams there. Jarno puts himself now up to 6th place. He's enjoying himself out there, but now he's going to be under pressure from Konzo now down towards turn 4 as the Toro Rosso doesn't have DRS. He's got the inside line. Konzo trying to go round the outside now. There's just nowhere for him to go. He has to back out of that one, and Jarno holds on to P6, and you can see going defensive at the narrowest part of the track there, but doesn't really compromise his exit, or entrance I should say, to the next corner, and Jarno keeps a hold of 6th place. Now Konzo has to be careful about Vitinho, about Iceman, about Kelvin and Scorpion, who are all ready to try and take that position away from him. Not long to go now. We're just over, well, 7 kilometres, 6 kilometres I would say, to the checkered flag, and Compassion leads the way.
Yeah, not even, it's 5 kilometers really at this point. Remember, one lap only 4.3 kilometers long, and we are close to the finish line. One more lap to go, and I just looked at the penalties. Compassion has no penalties, but he has 2 warnings. However, Dainstar also on 1 penalty. So even if Compassion does get the 3rd warning and penalty, he's still even with Dainstar. He's also even with Meloy, and he's even with Maurice. So Compassion can afford a penalty at this point, and he would still win the race, as all the other drivers, P2, P3, P4, that are within 3 seconds behind him, they all have 1 3-second penalty.
Well, Compassion still leads the way then, as there's less than a lap to go in this season finale here in Brazil for One Hub Racing Precision Tier, sponsored of course by Next Level Racing, as Dainstar still tries to hold off Malloy. He's in that bit of between a rock and a hard place. He wants to try and attack for Compassion, but he's also got to try and defend from Malloy behind him. Meanwhile, Compassion, only on his second appearance, making his way down towards turn 12. He got a podium, second place last time out, and his debut here in One Hub Racing. He's going to go one better with the next race. He comes around the final couple of corners. It's going to be Compassion who takes the checkered flag and takes the win here at the season finale in Brazil. A great drive from Compassion there. Dainstar second, Malloy in third, Maurice with the fastest lap, grabbing that extra point for now inside of the top 10. Brett there in 5th place, Jarno 6th, Konzo in 7th, Vitinho 8th, Iceman in 9th, and Kelvin rounding out that top 10. It is Scorpion in 11th, and Chris cruising his way around, maybe to try and get this fastest lap of the race outside of the top 10. We'll have to see if he can achieve that. But what a day for Compassion, and what a day also for Toro Rosso with Jarno's P6. They are Constructors Champions, and Jarno has done the double.
Yeah, and Chris actually does get the fastest lap, not just outside the top 10, but in general. But since we do split those up, he will get that 1 point there. And Scorpion will be the only driver to finish the race who will not get a single point. Very unfortunate for him here, but yeah, it is Compassion. In his second One Hub race, his first victory. In his first race, he finished P2, so there was really only one way to go up, and he's done it right here. What a way to recommend yourself for Season 16. And Compassion, I think he's going to be a hot commodity on the driver's market come Season 16, come the first season on F1 2020.
Well, a fantastic way to put yourself on the radar there for Compassion. No doubt he could walk into any other team at this point. But here are your unofficial results here for the One Hub Racing Precision Tier Brazilian Grand Prix. It is Compassion who takes his first race win from 17th on the grid. It is Dainstar in second, Malloy in third, Maurice in fourth with Brett in fifth. It's Jarno 6th, Konzo 7th, Vitinho in 8th, Iceman in 9th, and Kelvin rounds out that top 10. Scorpion in 11th, Chris getting 12th place and the fastest lap of the race, 109.4, which gets him the fastest lap of the race, bonus point outside the top 10. Maurice gets the fastest lap inside the top 10 with a 109.8 there from him on the very final lap of this race. But we have to come to that decision. It's only my second time of choosing a driver, but Austin, who is your driver of the day?
I mean, you're going to have to go for Compassion, don't you? I mean, he started from the very back of the grid, from P17, and went on to win the race. I mean, it was a crazy race. We had rain at the start, we had a very slow transition over to dry conditions, and he waited that out. He was patient in that situation, and then he just picked off his opponents one by one, waited for the right opportunity. Great restarts on the safety car periods. Just an all-around fantastic performance from Compassion.
I think I've always joked with Jamie when I was in the box with him last season that whatever we pick is going to be wrong. But I'm going to pick Brett for this one. P10 qualified to get to P5. No penalties whatsoever, at least from the on-track stewards. I think he had a great race. He's a driver in form, and he certainly proved his form out there today. Great drive from him to seal 5th place in this race. And that is who you'll be able to vote for or vote between when it gets to the next day to vote for your driver of the day. Will it be Compassion, or will it be Brett? The choice is entirely yours out of those two. Anyway, you'll be able to vote for that at One Hub Racing, so make sure you go and follow the league on Twitter. Also follow our sponsors on Twitter as well, at NextLVL Racing. And that, Mr. Austin, is our season done.
Yeah, and Jano is going to have a Next Level Racing wheel stand coming his way. He already clinched that up, obviously, last week, but that is what the winners of the Drivers' Championship get here. Second and third place will get trophies. That is, in this case, Dainstar, who will get a trophy for second place in the standings, and Carlsberry, who wasn't here tonight. He had a chance at getting second place, but wasn't able to make it tonight, unfortunately. He was only 3 points behind Dainstar before this race. Obviously, Dainstar, with that second place, did a very good job of making sure that gap increases now. But Carlsberry also will get a trophy, and then there's also going to be trophies for the Constructors' Champions, so Jano and Kelvin will also get another one for Jano. So he will have 2 trophies to add to his What's the word I'm looking for?
Cabinet?
Cabinet, thank you very much. It's my second language, I'm sorry. But yeah, he has 2 trophies to add to his cabinet, and that wheel stand, I think, will do nicely in his room.
Absolutely, and of course there's one more championship that we should be talking about, Mr. Austin, and it's one that has been so close all season long. Before we went into this race, the Commentators Championship looked a little something like this. Luke leading the way with an average score of 4.96. He scored 5s all the way through, except for the first round of the season with a 4.7. It was Owen in second. Austin, yourself, was on third. Alex was on fourth. I was fifth, but I'm now ineligible because I haven't done 5 rounds this season, which is unfortunate, but that's the way the cookie crumbles. But so close between the top 4, any one of them could win it. And Austin was joking with me before the start. Luke would have had to have an extreme bottle, and even Luke was saying himself he'll probably introduce the wrong round, the wrong the wrong league, the wrong everything. Say we're at Imola. And that would be how he hands the title away. But whatever happens, it's been such a close season, and I'm seeing so many 5s across the board. It's been unbelievable.
Yeah, I have to say, but I'm under no illusion. I didn't watch the podium tier because they're running just an hour before us, and so as we start our stream, the podium tier usually gets going with their race. So it's really hard to watch that when you're doing commentary yourself. But I'm pretty sure Luke didn't bottle it. I mean, he would have had to score the lowest score we've had so far this season among all the commentators, and I don't even think he's capable of that. So he's done a fantastic job all season, and there's a reason he's winning that championship. He's a fantastic commentator, but everyone is. I personally, I have to thank Owen for sticking with me for 8 of the 10 rounds. I have to thank, I think it was Sam who filled in for round 5. For some reason, Owen just keeps skipping the counterclockwise tracks. First Singapore, now this. I don't know if that's a pattern, but we'll see next season. But Owen, always a great commentator to be joined by. And of course, you, Kieran, as well, now for the final round. It's always a pleasure to have someone else in the booth to talk to and talk with. And I wouldn't like doing this alone.
And obviously you're seeing Jess there saying that the Commentators Championship results will be announced at 6 p.m. BST this Sunday. So make sure you're following One Hub Racing. I'm sure that the commentators all in the chat there, the little chat that we have, will all be sort of giving each other jibes. But whatever happens, whoever gets it fully deserves it. It's been so good to be listening back to some of the commentary as well. And of course, Jess and I will have to be getting the paddock pass. So lots of plans going into that one. So make sure you are subscribed down below, hit the notification bell so you don't miss another race. And before we all bore you to absolute oblivion, why don't you go and join the Pinnacle tier along with Alex for their final race of the season. I think it's time for us, Austin, to sign off for what has been a fantastic season.
Yeah, and there's going to be an interesting fight over third place, at least in the standings in the Pinnacle tier. So make sure to watch out for that. Only 4 points between Rafa and Midnight, so make sure to keep an eye on those 2 drivers. That could be very, very interesting.
Absolutely. So go ahead, go over there right now and watch the final race of One Hub for season number 15. Until next time, thank you very much for watching. I've been Kieran McGinley.
And I'm Austin Smith.
Take care of yourselves, and we will see you next season.